Well, in today's show, we have Iveth Luna. Iveth, thank you so much for chatting with me this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me. Love to chat.
Yeah. So, are you, I would say Merry Christmas, but I don't know. Like, are you one of those before Thanksgiving people? Or are you like strict right after Thanksgiving? You're all in the Christmas spirit.
I am in the Christmas spirit now. I just haven't had time to decorate my home with the Christmas thing. So we're still on fall, but we kind of ride the line. We love our fall, but we really do love Christmas. So I'm online exploring, okay, how am I going to decorate my home?
Yeah. I know some people like at the stroke of midnight on Halloween, it's like full blown Christmas, Here we go.
Oh man, I can't do that. I have to get my piece of fall, you know?
Yeah. 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 Well, we spoke with you a few weeks ago on GMA week in Nashville, but we enjoyed our time together, and we didn't get a whole lot of time with you, and so it's good to have this time set aside to get to know you more. And so, what we like to do with our first time guests, we just like to ask, how did you get your start in music in the ministry?
Yeah. Well, I was definitely influenced by my family. I came from a background of musicians and singers. My dad played keys in a worship band, and my uncles led worship, and they played all the instruments. Basically, it was like a Luna church. And my uncle was a pastor. So I was very much influenced by music and um, Christianity. As a little girl, you're like, oh, what am I doing? As a child, you're like, okay, this is what we do. But I accepted Jesus in my heart when I was 5. And I know it seems like a young age, but my mom was actually leading someone else to Christ. And the question she was asking this person and the way she led them, I remember the moment where I said, I want Jesus too. And so I had to talk to my mom and say, hey, like, I want Jesus too. Like, and I just witnessed an adult just completely be changed by the love and the powerful love of God. And so that was the setting that I grew up in. I got to watch my uncle pastor at church, and my grandfather was a missionary and church planner. So this was very real to me even as a child, but I had to definitely walk my own faith when I went to college. You move out of your home and you're starting this new journey. And I had a really um, powerful experience with the Lord when I was 19. I was a freshman in college, and I was at a worship night. No one knew I sang. So I got to lead worship when I was younger with my uncles. They taught me harmony and all of that. And I thought it was so fun. And I wanted to do it in college, but I was afraid to, it was just like, oh, should I risk everything for this? And it might not work out. So I also ended up majoring in business, and it also made my dad happy. And he was like, you got to get a job that pays the bills. And
Hmm.
so, and it doesn't really, this, to do Christian music, it doesn't happen to everyone to get the opportunity. So my dad was realistic, um, I love my parents. And so I wanted to honor my dad. You're paying for my college. I'm going to major in something. And it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt. It definitely helped a lot afterwards. But um, so I only the Lord knew that I loved to sing, and family members. And so when I went off to college, you're creating new friendships, and I just kind of had this like secret love for music, secret love for singing that I kind of just kept to myself because it just sounded like a crazy dream. And I remember walking into a worship night with all my girlfriends from down the hall, and we were worshiping, and something supernatural happened. And that's only happened once in my life, but God just like stopped time and spoke to me and said, you're going to sing for me. And it wasn't an audible voice, but it was just him, his spirit speaking to my spirit. And I was
Hmm.
just like, oh gosh. And I only read that the Lord does miraculous things in the Bible at this point in my life. And I am so grateful to get to experience his presence like that. And I felt like I came back to reality in like what it was like 2, 3 seconds of his presence. And I just wept the entire night. And because I felt his presence, and I had never felt it that way before. And no one taught me that I could. Um, Sometimes even as an adult, I'm like, man, remember when you spoke to me that way? Like, you want to do that
Mhm.
again? That'd be great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it marked me forever. And it was so funny because I felt like the crazy girl telling all my friends, guys, God spoke to me. And I'm like weeping, like ugly crying. God spoke to me. It's great. And so I remember calling my dad that night and saying, God told me that I would sing for him. And he was just like, okay, change your major, whatever you need to do. He was so open to it. And so I was really grateful. But I didn't end up changing my major because I heard you had to audition, and I was like, nope, I don't want to audition. This is scary. So it's crazy because the Lord has, my life is truly the Lord working. His hand all over this because I loved music and I loved all that, but the stage was so um, intimidating, very intimidating. I mean, you're bearing your soul, and so fast forward, God continued to open doors. I ended up joining the touring worship team, and I auditioned against 60 other female vocalists, and I ended up getting the one spot that they were
Mm.
looking for. And I remember when I got that, I just wept because it just showed that God was keeping his promise to me. You will sing for me. And he was opening those doors. And so it's really special because I look back and I had many prayers with the Lord, just things I wouldn't even tell people. Like I didn't confess my dreams to people, but just like, oh God, it would be awesome if I could like lead worship there. Or God, it'd be so cool if I could sing with this person. And like he was answering those prayers. I was just like, oh my gosh, like Lord, what are you doing? I was just so amazed. And it was really beautiful because I got to cultivate my relationship with the Lord. And I'm just really grateful that he showed himself to me in that way. Fast forward, pursued the whole music thing, did American Idol, did The Voice. Doors were slammed shut in my face and I kind of gave up and I was kind of burnt out, really discouraged. And I was like, well, God, didn't you say? And I had to go through a long journey. Long story short, I went through a really tough season with depression. But the Lord brought me out of it. And I felt like I had to fight for my faith. And I'm really grateful that I did. But fast forward, one of my friends was singing at this wine bar. She's a country Christian singer. So she sings country music, but she also like shares the gospel and sings Christian music in between her set.
Mm.
She called me and she said, hey, come sing during my set, during my intermission. And this is McKinney, Texas. This isn't Nashville. I'm not,
Right.
I'm like, and I thought, you know what? If the Lord has called me to this, he's going to make a way when there is no way. And so I drove up there and I ended up singing an original song. And this lady came up to me and she was like, hey, I just feel like God, you have a call on your life and God wants to open doors for you. And I was just like, I'm not sure. I don't want to audition for anything anymore. And we stayed in touch and she actually connected me to Consumed by Fire. We started writing together and one thing led to another. And I ended up getting signed at Red Street Records in 2020. It's a wild story, but if God calls you to something, he's going to make a way for it. And he's just shown me that. So that's a little
Wow.
bit of my story.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think a collaboration with you and Jay is in the works. I hope that would be
Oh
awesome because the man can sing and you could sing. That'd be some great music right there.
my gosh. You know what? I'm going to hit him up for that. A
I
little bit.
think you know his people. Now you had mentioned American Idol and The Voice. Did you try it before the judges or was that well how did that work out?
Yeah. So when doors open so easily, you're like, oh my gosh, this must be God. And honestly, I'm grateful. I'm grateful I got rejected because it teaches you to continue to push for something that you love. And it also gives you perspective. I got scouted on Instagram and I went to an executive audition and I sang for the judges there. I didn't know they were the executive producers of the show. So I
Mm.
ended up singing for them. They're like, we love you. We want you to sing in front of the celebrity judges. And I was like, amazing. And so my next audition after that was in front of the celebrity judges. So I had only, I guess I skipped a lot. And so I flew to California, and there's this whole process. We got there at 4 a.m,
Mm,
makeup ready. And I didn't audition till like 3 in the afternoon, and you couldn't leave the room. Like the artist could not leave the room. So my family was there with me, and they had to leave and come back, bring me lunch. And you're just kind of waiting there and taking interviews. And, they're getting kind of the whole story of the show. I learned a lot about showbiz and TV and all of that. But then I got to sing in front of the celebrity judges, and I felt so confident. I'm like, I'm going to kill this. I've done the voice. I got experience. Like, this is going to be great. And you walk in, and then you see them, and they're like the most beautiful creatures in the whole. I mean, I've never seen such perfect human beings. Like, they were so LA, whatever that is. But like Lionel Richie, just he looked good for his age. And I mean, Luke Bryan and Katy Perry, I mean, she looks like a doll. So I walk in super confident. As soon as I see them, I'm like, oh my gosh, all the confidence just leaves me right then and there. And I'm just dry mouth, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've listened to your albums. And it was so surreal. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot with that experience.
yeah. Wow. What your song "In You"? We really like that song. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about that one?
Yeah, that song is based off Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I think we all have a little bit of fear in our lives, at least at some point. And I remember in that season I had just gotten signed. I got signed in 2020, and then the world shut down. So I was like
Yeah.
writing a ton. But when you're entering something new like that feels like a promotion, you question yourself, like, can I do this? Am I really called for this? And I think the enemy likes to put in those doubts in our minds. And I was really struggling if I was really called for this, if I was really equipped for this. And so that's what I was going through in that season. But really, this song is an anthem to declare. I think there's power in what we say over our lives. I'm sorry, my dog is crying. There's
Okay.
power in what we say over our lives and over our identity. And I think God has equipped us with words and truth to declare over ourselves. And it's really empowering when we get to say it. And it's even more empowering when we sing it and sing it over our lives. So in you, that's kind of like the heart behind it. Heart behind it.
Yeah. That's good. Your dog sounds like he's really upset.
Real quick. She won't stop. I
Oh,
just
mercy. That's funny.
crying. Let her out. Door was right there, so we're good.
Well, this is a fan based podcast, and we will let our listeners know who we are having on. And we had a fan of yours. Her name is Lori from St. Louis, and she wants to know the story behind your song "Ears to Hear."
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Ears to Hear. First of all, thank you for loving that song. I love that song because it is so honest. Like, have you ever felt like you aren't hearing from the Lord? I've had seasons where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so aligned with him. Oh, I got you. Like, I hear that, and I'm just like, yes, I'm so empowered. And
You
there
got
are
him on
some,
speed dial.
that's a song. That's funny. And there are times where I feel like, where are you? Where are you in this? And you know what? I might not even be going through a tough season. I might be having the best time of my life, but like when you don't feel like God is there, it's easy to get in a slump. It's easy to just, feel certain ways. So this song, it's really important because I wanted it to meet people where they are, because like life isn't perfect, like we're gonna go through it. So I wanted to meet people where they are, especially those who've ever felt that way. And but also declare, like, it's also a prayer. Give me ears to hear your voice through the dark, let your whisper break through the noise. So it's also a prayer, and it reminds me of Psalms. Like, I mean, David expressed his heart was honest about the things that he was going through. But then he like has so many of his of what he wrote is also a prayer. Get me through
Mm.
this, God. So yeah, that's the heart behind that.
Thank you for that. So how does the writing process work with you? Like, do you go away for a few days, or do you have other people that you write with, or how does that look?
Yeah. Um, the writing process is, I feel like it's different every time. Uh, if everyone has a perfect method, that's great. But for me, I feel like it's different every time. Sometimes the Lord just gives me themes and ideas, and even with like reading the Bible in my quiet time, the Lord just like highlights something to me as I'm reading, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that. If it really impacts me, and like, if it's something that I can't stop thinking about, I just know that I need to write a song about that. Sometimes it's also lessons that the Lord is teaching me. For example, when we wrote "Believe," that is also on my EP. I struggled with belief when I was going through depression, and I wanted to write a song against the doubting, a song that will help people that are doubting, a song that'll help people that are in a waiting season or don't know what's next. But that's something that the Lord taught me. And it's also a song that I go back to when I'm like, oh man, I don't feel like I have the strength. And then I put the song on and I'm just like, yes, like I'm empowered. But I feel like I get themes and ideas first usually. Now,
Mhm.
sometimes I just like sit at the piano and worship. And
Yeah.
then like sometimes just gold comes out, like, oh wow, and a melody comes out, and I just am very drawn to melodies. I'm a melody girl, ideas and melody. And then I start fleshing out lyrics, and recently and I'll have like half finished songs, and I'm like, okay, I think this is something really worth pursuing, and then I'll bring it to Nashville and we'll finish the song together. So that's kind of how it happens.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, along with our first time guest, we like to have a segment called Favorite Things. And so I'm just going to give you a word and you let me know your favorite thing.
Okay.
All right. Ready? The first one is, what is your favorite food?
Ooh, tacos. I love tacos. You can put anything in it, and it's a good little
Okay.
taco.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you like authentic, or are you just like whatever, Taco Bell, whatever kind?
Oh no. Okay. I've had my Taco Bell moments, but for the longest time, I love authentic tacos. I mean,
Sure.
um, growing up, I would visit my grandfather, who was a missionary and pastor in Mexico. So my family and I would go visit him, and let me tell you, you haven't lived if you haven't had authentic Mexican tacos. But I
Do
do love
you?
my like velvet taco, a good like fuzzies taco. In
Yeah.
Texas, there's this place four cheese tacos.
Okay.
Good.
Nice.
It's
Do you have a favorite movie that you like?
Oof, this is really hard. Um, you know what? Princess Diaries.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Is there a show that you like to binge?
Mm, I feel like it changes every time. uh, but if, this summer, there's this show called The Summer I Turned Pretty. And so I
Okay.
started watching, and I got my husband to watch it. So he, I
Bless
know
his
he was
heart.
like, I don't want to watch this silly show. And then by the end of it, he's like, so is she choosing Connor or Jeremiah? And I'm like, that is funny.
Yeah, I'm about to make a huge confession. So, several years
Oh,
ago, my wife, go ahead. You what?
I'm excited. I want to hear
Uh,
it.
my wife, she binged watched Gilmore Girls and watched the whole thing. And she's like, "You would like it." I'm like, "No, that stuff is so stupid." And I watched 2 episodes, and then I caught myself watching the whole series within a few months. And then when the Netflix they like redid like a new like few years later, I don't know if you remember, they like did another one, and she was
Mm.
like, "I can't wait till that comes out or whatever." And then inside, I'm like, "Yeah, me either." But
Thank you
anyway,
guys. Just
yeah.
add in a little to your life.
Is there a favorite artist of all time?
Mm, this is tough. I'll go with the classic, Adele. I really love Adele
Okay, all
and Lady
right.
Gaga.
There you go. What about a dream duet?
Mm. Um, Dream duet. This is maybe Jada Marcus.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I, I really do. I love Lady Gaga's vocals. She released a jazz album with Tony Bennett, and she
Hmm.
just amazed her acting on the movie. What was it called?
I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the name.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I just think she's such a talented musician and vocalist. So that would be really cool too.
Yeah. Is there a favorite ice cream flavor that you have?
I'm kind of plain. I love vanilla. I
Okay.
love a good
Well, good thing with vanilla, you can always add stuff to it. So
right, right.
big old scoop of peanut butter.
Oh well, I actually always add the little cheesecake bites.
Mm, okay.
Good little.
Nice and healthy. Is there a favorite podcast that you have?
um, Let me think. Christian Music Guys podcast is one of my
Oh,
favorites.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, you got the email. Okay, congratulations.
But I also love my church actually puts out every Monday a leadership podcast. And I love my church. But this leadership podcast has biblical principles that you can apply to everyday life, your relationships, your job. Um, I truly believe it helps you build healthy leadership and with Christian values. So I love their podcast too.
Cool. Where do you go to church?
Shoreline City and Dallas, Dallas,
Okay,
Texas.
cool. Cool. Is there a Bible verse that you like?
Let me think. I want to say either Zephaniah 3:17 or Romans 5:8. But I love Romans 5:8 because it reminds me of God's love for me. But God demonstrates his own love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. So, yeah.
That's good. Yvette, what is next for you and how can our listeners keep up with you?
I am, well, following what the Lord puts in front of me. And I have new music that's been cooking, and I'm really, really excited to release it next year, God willing. And yeah, it's just the continued message of God's love and
Mm,
who He is and who He has revealed Himself to be, which is faithful and so many amazing things. So, new music coming out, and you could stay up to date on my Instagram and website and Facebook.
awesome. Well, to wrap up, I'd like to see if you'd be willing to share something that God has been doing in your life, maybe even recently, that would help build our listeners' faith.
Ooh, that's good. Okay. One thing that God is teaching me right now is to uh, watch for the people that He highlights and follow His call and His leading in that. For example, sharing the gospel or sharing how God is working in your own life and what He's done for you. There's power in your testimony, and God is opening doors for me to do that. Little quick story. I was flying to Nashville last week, and I was stuck in traffic, and I should have boarded earlier. I should have boarded sooner, but because traffic made me late, I boarded last on the plane. I ended up sitting in an aisle seat, which is fine, no problem. If I am boarding first, I sit on a window seat just because I'm comfortable that way. And God's detour is not detours aren't always bad, and they could be purposeful. I end up sitting next to this girl, and we start having conversations, and she shares with me that it's her first trip to Nashville, and she shares some lyrics that she's been working on, and they're really dark, and you could tell that she is struggling with a lot. And I recognized it because I used to feel that same way when I went through depression. And I was
Mm,
like, God, you're about to tell me to share my story with her. I just know it. And I was like, quick prayer in my brain. I was like, okay, Lord, if you want me to do this, I will. Just make it easy, like make it obvious too that you want me to do this.
yeah.
And I think God highlights certain people in our lives. There's something that you might have gone through that only you can understand, that only you can speak through and relate to someone about and talk about God's faithfulness to. And so for her, she expressed to me that she didn't even have to tell me she was going through depression. I already knew because the Lord just revealed it to me. It was all
Yeah.
the signs that I went through. And then so she told me her story, and her boyfriend had just passed. Her ex-boyfriend had passed away 2 months ago. It was just, and so she was carrying a lot, and she just had a lot of pain. And so then she asks me about me, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm here to, I'm meeting with some radio people and getting to write. And she's like, oh, that's so cool. What music do you write? And I said, I write Christian music. And she asked me, how'd you get into that? Well, we had a lot of time, so I ended up telling her my whole story. And the point where I got to where I went through depression, she began to cry, and she was
Mm,
weeping in the about 10 minutes. And I told her exactly how I felt, and she just started to weep and said, I feel the same way right now.
wow.
And I was just like, Lord, I just knew it. And then I started to speak into her life, and I said, look, God brought me out of that. And there's just a lot of things that she and I had in common. Like it wasn't a coincidence. The Lord sat me there for a reason. And so
Wow.
I asked her, "Can I pray for you?" And she was 26, so she's 26 and she's going through all of this.
Mm,
And she's like, "Would you please pray for me?" And so I know
mm,
I'm praying for her. And by the end of that, she was like, I just knew I needed to go back to God. So she had family members that were believers, and she just turned away from the Lord because of some pain that she walked through. And so she was like, I know I have a God-sized hole in my heart, and I know I need to go back to him. And so after I finished praying with her, she was like, I feel so much lighter. I feel like I have joy, and like I'm ready to put God first again. And so like the Lord the Lord will lead us to share our testimony, and it doesn't have to be hard. It's just what God has done for you. So that's what God
yeah.
is teaching me, is to be obedient to those moments, and not worry about the awkwardness, because God will set it up.
Right.
Yeah, that's that's what the Lord is teaching me.
Well, and just think, like, if you were a few minutes earlier or whatever, you wouldn't have had that opportunity to minister to this young lady, you know? And so God just set that up for such a time as this and used you.
Come
And
on,
that's powerful.
come on, that's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Yvette, thank you so much for chatting with me. And yeah, just Adele, if you're listening, or Lady Gaga, if you're listening, she's ready to do that dream duet that she's been waiting on her whole life. And so
Yeah.
call her up.